Sunday, the 20th of December. This is the Democratic Alliance Labour Report. Thank you for listening and thank you very much for being our weekly viewers. If you like this, please pass it on to friends, family, use Facebook, Twitter, whatever you wish. Please pass this on. It certainly will help us. This week, I want to discuss 3 court cases and some research that's been done. Firstly, we're going to look at the 3-year wage agreement with the civil service that the government entered into with the civil service. This is very exciting. We've had an exciting judgment in this, and we'll talk about it. It will lead, I think, to a major strike, the mother of all strikes. Secondly, our courts have also said there's a right to discipline even after resignation and someone has walked out. There's a right to discipline. Makes for interesting listening as well. And finally, businesses can retrench staff even if they are doing it purely to take down the terms and conditions of service. So make an interesting listening to that as well. Thank you very much for listening to this, because there's also a report that we're going to look at on small business. It's shocking, it's devastating, but we do need to face those facts. So thank you once again for listening to us. I'm Michael Bagram. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance, and as I said, it's Sunday, the 20th of December 2020. I wish everyone who's going to celebrate Christmas a wonderful Christmas and New Year. For those who are going to be celebrating the festive season, be safe, keep yourself COVID-free. And those that are working, you the lucky few who are going to be working, I wish you working hard, making extra money for the economy, and let's make sure that things come right in South Africa. So let's have a look at that 3-year wage agreement. Just over 2 years ago, our government recklessly entered into a wage agreement with the civil service, giving them an increase. This was supposed to be an increase for 3 years, a percentage at the end of first year, a percentage at the end of second year, and then the third year, another percentage. Now, the fiscus couldn't afford it. They got bullied into it, and eventually our government, which is obviously being led by COSATU, came into that agreement. They gave the increase in the first year, they gave the increase in the second year, and in the third year they decided, no, they're actually not going to give this increase because they can't afford it. Now, interesting, because they're now blaming the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown, but they couldn't afford it in the first place, so one wonders where they're coming from. But there you have it. They decided not to give it, and they decided to defend a court case on the basis that they couldn't afford it. Well, obviously what happened is they do land up in court, and they had an almighty fight with COSATU and the unions under that umbrella. This is interesting because this is the first time that we see a major split between the governing party and COSATU, and I'd be interested to see how that plays out in the municipal elections, the local elections next year in 2021. In the meantime, there's no love lost between the unions and government, and eventually what happened was government said that the unions were trying to push them into bankruptcy, and the court found a technical point to let government win this case. Now, it is a technical point. It might go on appeal. It might even go to the Constitutional Court. In the meantime, the unions are looking at it. Their lawyers are looking at this, and they're saying they're going to determine what they're going to do early on in the new year. They've also threatened the mother of all strikes. Can you imagine our entire civil service going on strike? We're still during the second wave of the pandemic. Can you imagine the cities coming to an enormous standstill? So that's going to be an interesting watch. Let's have a look at it. I'll be able to give some more on this next week. I am speaking to COSATU about it. I'm interested to see what they have to say, and I'm interested to see which way their lawyers want to jump. We were all very keen to know where we're going. The second one I said was that there's a right to discipline even after resignation. Now, often we used to see where an employee was facing a disciplinary inquiry, they would suddenly resign with immediate effect. They would leave, they would walk out and avoid the disciplinary hearing. Well, this landed up in the Labour Court, and again the Labour Court had a look at it very carefully and said, if you're still in your notice period, and even if you choose to break your notice period, the employer can go ahead with that disciplinary inquiry and can still dismiss, and it'll be against your record that you've been dismissed, not resignation. So that's an interesting court case. It doesn't look like that's going on appeal. That's our law. Our law is if it's during your period of notice, whether you've walked out or not, the employer can go ahead and discipline and dismiss. So it's an interesting court case. Then finally, I want to have a look at another court case where there's been thousands, even millions of retrenchments in South Africa at the moment. And what has happened in the past is that you couldn't demand that employees take lesser terms and conditions of service. Alternatively, you would retrench them. You couldn't do that in the past. There has been a court case. It came out at the end of October this year. And this court case said that if it's an imperative, in other words, you do need to change the terms and conditions. In other words, people must take less salary or work longer hours or do something of that nature. Alternatively, retrench them. This court has now said that you can do that. In other words, you can demand that people take less salary. Obviously, if there's a structure to that demand, if there's a need for that demand, and we've seen a lot of that over the COVID-19 lockdown, where thousands of businesses have asked their employees, especially the management staff, to take cuts, 10%, 20%, 30% cuts, alternatively face retrenchment. What I'm really saying to people is that is now our law, and I'm asking people to at least consider the lesser terms and conditions. Consider it rather than face retrenchment. It's not so easy to get back into the workforce. In fact, we are at almost 50% unemployment. If you happen to be in the category 16, 17 years old to 25 years old, there's over 60% unemployment, and so that's interesting. And then I do want to finally have a look at a study that was done on small businesses during the lockdown in South Africa. And interestingly, not shockingly, but interestingly, almost 48% of small businesses have closed down. Now we know small business is the engine room of job creation. We know that small business is the way in which people can get into the economy. If they're closing down, there is no way into the economy. And how are we going to cure the unemployment problem in South Africa? We need government to step in to make things easier for small businesses, to try and get them to reopen, try and get them to reinvent themselves. I know the Democratic Alliance is doing just that. They've come out with all terms and conditions to help small business. And in particular in the Western Province, which is the province governed by the Democratic Alliance, they are doing everything in their possible ambit to try and help small businesses. So we need to look at this carefully. This study is shocking. So thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram. I'm the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance. It's Sunday, the 20th of December, 2020. Be safe, be happy. Thank you very much.